Welcome back to my channel. In the early 1970s, America was a nation navigating change. The echoes of the civil rights movement lingered in the air, the Vietnam War was still a subject of heated debate, and the Watergate scandal had just begun to cast its long shadow over the political landscape. Amid all this, in 1972, the United States Mint quietly continued its work, pressing metal into currency, minting coins that would pass through countless hands, each with its own story. Among these coins was one that would later stand apart from the rest, not for the number produced, but for a rare few that contained something truly special. It was the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that honored a fallen president and would eventually become one of the most sought-after pieces in numismatic circles. Decades later, one specimen would command a price of $128,000. The Kennedy half-dollar was first introduced in 1964, less than a year after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In a moment of national mourning and reverence, the U.S. Mint fast-tracked the design and approval process to honor the late president. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts created the profile of Kennedy for the obverse, while Frank Gasparo designed the reverse, which featured the presidential seal, an eagle clutching arrows, and an olive branch encircled by stars. The coin quickly became both a tribute and a symbol, capturing the collective sentiment of a grieving nation. By 1972, the Kennedy half-dollar had become a fixture of American coinage, but it was also undergoing transitions. The silver content had been reduced after 1970, with the coins now composed primarily of copper-nickel-clad materials. Despite this shift, the coin retained its dignity and appeal. Millions were minted across facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet within this vast sea of coins, some anomalies slipped through the cracks. Mint errors are a fascinating corner of numismatics. They come in many forms: double strikes, off-center images, planchet flaws, or incorrect dies. In the case of the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, one of the most celebrated errors was a rare double die obverse. This particular error resulted in a doubling of the date and the word Liberty on the front of the coin. It's an error that's difficult to detect with the naked eye but unmistakable to collectors and professionals trained to look closely. When such a coin is discovered in pristine condition, especially one that was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which did not use a mint mark at the time, it becomes the stuff of legend. That's what happened with the particular specimen that later sold for $128,000. Carefully preserved, its features sharp and uncirculated, it was a standout among a generation of coins. What makes a coin like this so valuable? It's not just the error, though that plays a critical role. It's also the condition, graded as MS-67 or higher by top-tier grading services like PCGS or NGC. It's the rarity, so few of these double-die errors have been found that their very existence is questioned by some. And it's the historical significance, a coin tied to a president who remains one of the most iconic figures in American memory. Collectors are drawn to the Kennedy half-dollar for more than just potential value. There's an emotional resonance, a sense of patriotism, and a connection to a moment in time. When you hold one, you're not just holding 50 cents. You're holding a piece of American history, a remembrance of 1963, and a tribute that continues through the decades. The 1972 version, with its potential for rare errors and its role in the coin's evolving composition, holds a special place in that timeline. Over the years, awareness of the 1972 double-die error has grown. Collectors scour coin rolls, attend conventions, and engage in late-night auctions hoping to catch even a whisper of its existence. Some find close calls, coins that mimic the doubling but don't quite meet the mark. Others are luckier, discovering treasures in jars, drawers, or old collections passed down from relatives. For one fortunate individual, a nearly flawless example led to a six-figure payday, a moment where numismatic knowledge met extraordinary luck. As we look back, the story of the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar serves as a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it takes a trained eye, a bit of patience, and a lot of passion to uncover a coin that changes everything. For collectors and enthusiasts alike, the hunt continues, and with it, the dream that one day a small, forgotten piece of metal might reveal itself to be a treasure worth $128,000. In 1973, America stood in a peculiar moment in its history, on the edge of the Watergate scandal's eruption, nearing the end of its involvement in Vietnam and grappling with inflation and changing social values. The culture was shifting rapidly, yet amid this backdrop of political and social upheaval, everyday life continued, and so did the quiet hum of machines at the United States Mint. Coins clinked and clattered from stamping presses, rolling onto conveyor belts and into bags destined for banks and pockets across the country. Among them was the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that continued to honor the legacy of a president who had left an indelible mark on American consciousness. But tucked within the millions minted that year were a few pieces so unique, so rare that they would later capture the imagination of collectors and command values well beyond their modest face. One such specimen would eventually be valued at an incredible $115,000. The Kennedy half-dollar was first introduced in 1964 following the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Americans from all walks of life mourned the loss of their young, charismatic leader, and in his honor, the U.S. Mint moved swiftly to redesign the half-dollar coin to bear his image. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts crafted Kennedy's profile for the obverse, while Frank Gasparo designed the reverse, using a version of the presidential seal. From the beginning, the Kennedy half-dollar was more than just currency, it was a piece of history. By 1973, the coin had seen a significant transition in its composition. The initial 90% silver content had already been reduced in 1965, and by 1971, the half-dollar was being struck using a copper-nickel clad composition, more cost-effective but less precious. Despite the change in material, the Kennedy half-dollar retained a certain prestige. It wasn't often used in everyday transactions by that time, and many Americans collected them out of habit or admiration. That year, the United States Mint struck millions of Kennedy half-dollars in both Philadelphia and Denver, but none for general circulation from San Francisco. Instead, the San Francisco Mint focused solely on proof coins for collectors. Among these proofs, and occasionally among the regular issues, a few fascinating anomalies emerged, errors that would, in time, become incredibly valuable. One such rarity involved a double die obverse, a type of mint error where the coin's image appears slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. In the case of the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, this resulted in a barely perceptible but authentic doubling of the date and inscriptions such as Liberty and In God We Trust. These errors are rare and difficult to spot without magnification, but for the keen-eyed collector, they are akin to buried treasure. Even more elusive were coins struck on the wrong planchet. Occasionally, a Kennedy half-dollar would be struck using a planchet intended for a foreign coin or another denomination. These errors were not only rare but often went unnoticed for years. One such coin, a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar struck on a silver-clad planchet left over from earlier years, surfaced in near-perfect condition and stunned the numismatic world. This particular coin, graded at a pristine MS. 67 level, displayed all the sharpness and clarity that collectors dream of. Every detail was crisp, from the hair on Kennedy's head to the feathers of the eagle on the reverse. Its luster gleamed as if freshly minted, and yet it was a relic from 5 decades ago. When it finally went to auction, the buzz was palpable. Collectors from across the globe vied for the chance to own a piece of minting history. As the bidding climbed, it became clear that this was no ordinary coin. The final hammer dropped at an astonishing $115,000, an amount far beyond what most would ever expect from a copper-nickel half-dollar. But this was no ordinary half-dollar. It was a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical resonance. For collectors, such coins are more than just valuable, they're legendary. They represent the intersection of chance and craftsmanship, of history and discovery. Every Kennedy half-dollar tells a story, but only a few tell one that culminates in a 6-figure price tag. The tale of the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar is a reminder of the hidden value in everyday objects. Most coins are spent and forgotten, but some, due to the smallest errors or the greatest care in preservation, become treasures. They sit in velvet-lined boxes or behind glass in museums and private collections, their journeys frozen in time. And as collectors and enthusiasts continue to examine coin rolls, attend conventions, and study auctions, they carry with them the hope of finding the next great piece, the next Kennedy half-dollar that defies its origins and becomes something truly extraordinary. In the world of numismatics, the story never ends. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's written in the gleam of a $115,000 coin born in 1973. In 1979, the United States found itself at the crossroads of political change, economic fluctuation, and technological innovation. The decade was winding down, but the undercurrent of transformation was palpable. In homes across America, people were tuning into color televisions, disco records spun on turntables, and the first personal computers were making their way into offices. Amid all these cultural shifts, the United States Mint was quietly doing what it had done for nearly 2 centuries, producing coins that would make their way into the hands of everyday citizens. Among the many coins struck that year, the Kennedy half-dollar carried on its legacy, first begun in 1964 as a tribute to the slain 35th president. But in this particular year, a few rare examples of the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar would emerge that would become the stuff of legend, culminating in one specimen eventually being valued at an astonishing $110,000. To understand how such a common coin could become so valuable, we must delve into its origins. The Kennedy half-dollar was conceived in the wake of national tragedy. President John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963 left the country in mourning, and in an unprecedented move, the U.S. Mint swiftly redesigned the half-dollar to honor his memory. The coin was first issued in 1964 with sculptor Gilroy Roberts' bust of Kennedy on the obverse and Frank Gasparo's adaptation of the presidential seal on the reverse. It was immediately embraced by the public both as currency and as a commemorative keepsake. By 1979, the coin had become a staple of American currency, but its composition had changed. Gone were the 90% and 40% silver issues of earlier years. The Kennedy half-dollar was now made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. Yet even in its less precious form, the coin retained an aura of prestige and history. Minted in large numbers at the Philadelphia and Denver mints and in a more refined proof format at San Francisco, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar might have seemed unremarkable unless you knew exactly what to look for. Among the coins struck that year, a minute number bore unusual characteristics. Some featured a double die error where the die used to stamp the coin had shifted slightly between strikes, causing a noticeable doubling in certain inscriptions like Liberty or the date. Others were struck on the wrong planchets, discs intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. But one of the most extraordinary finds involved a proof coin with an extremely rare die variety known as the Type 2 reverse. The 1979 S-proof Kennedy half-dollars were struck with 2 different types of reverse dies. The more common Type 1 has a blob-like shape in the S mint mark, while the rarer Type 2 features a much clearer, more refined mint mark. The Type 2 proof is significantly scarcer and commands much higher premiums on the market. For collectors in the know, spotting this tiny detail meant uncovering a treasure. And when that Type 2 proof appears in near-perfect condition, it becomes not just rare, but extraordinary. In one such instance, a 1979 S Type 2 Kennedy half-dollar, graded PR70 DCAM, indicating a flawless, deep cameo proof coin, captured the attention of the numismatic world. Deep cameo refers to the stark contrast between the frosted design elements and the mirrored fields of the coin, a finish highly prized among collectors. The perfection of the coin, combined with its ultra-rare die variety, made it a numismatic marvel. When this specific specimen went to auction, the competition was fierce. Collectors knew that opportunities like this were once in a lifetime. The final hammer price? An astonishing $110,000. Such a value wasn't just the result of the coin's physical rarity. It was also the culmination of decades of collector enthusiasm, historical significance, and the mystique that surrounds rare coins and rare varieties. The 1979 Kennedy half-dollar may have been struck in the millions, but this one coin stood apart, representing the best of what numismatics has to offer, a perfect storm of chance, condition, and collector demand. The story of this coin continues to inspire both seasoned numismatists and newcomers alike. It serves as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight. A simple flip of a coin could reveal a masterpiece of minting history. And while most 1979 Kennedy half-dollars are worth little more than face value, a select few possess a magic that transcends their material makeup. In the world of coin collecting, it's these surprises, the anomalies, the perfect strikes, the forgotten rarities that keep the passion alive. Whether discovered in a proof set tucked away in a drawer or purchased through a high-stakes auction, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar with a value of $110,000 stands as a testament to the enduring allure of American coinage. It invites us all to look a little closer, to dig a little deeper, and to appreciate the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary.